In this video, I just want to look at how to use the verb charts in your Collins Robert French English dictionary. I'm using the Real Large Unabridged Dictionary, but other Collins Robert verb charts are similar to this. Now, for the verbs like être and avoir and faire and aller that are super irregular, they give a whole page of all the conjugations. But for a lot of verbs, they're just sort of irregular. The stem changes from one form to another. The endings are all the same. All the imperfect endings are the same. All the conditional endings are the same. It's just a stem that you need to figure out, or you need to use to figure out what the verb is. So let's look at how this chart works. Now, certainly the chart works better the more you know. And if you knew everything, you wouldn't need to use the chart. So there's always a lot of guessing involved. So suppose you come across the word. Let's choose the first verb they have here, haïr, and suppose that you have two ais, Tuhiis, and you want to figure out what form that is. Well, if you figure out that it's the verb haïr, then, and you look that up in the dictionary, in the main part of the dictionary, it'll have a number 10 by it, which means that it'll correspond to verb 10, or maybe you just figured it out that it was haïr by going through the list of all these verbs here. Now, haïr, these verbs might have other verbs that have the same conjugations. For example, servir, number 14, desservir, would also have conjugation 14, de in front of servir. Haïr, I don't know if there's any other verbs like haïr that are going to be the verb type 10, but there might be. But the verb type 10, the way that it works is for this first set of columns is the indicative, and this first section going from here to here is the present, and then you've got the imperfect indicative and the past historic indicative, what we call the passé simple. So the what we have here is under the present indicative, they give us 4 forms. Now you might say, but wait, there's 6 forms. There's the first person, second person, and third person singular, and first and second, third person plural. Well, it turns out that with stem changes, and that's what the verb chart is trying to show you here, what the stem's going to be. The stem for the first and the second person is always going to be the same. So that's why there's only a column for the first person and the third person, because the second person stem's always going to be the same. And you might say, well, how do we tell the difference between the singular and the plural? Well, the singular will be the first line and the plural will be the second line. So it's je haïs, and it assumes that you know enough French that the second person singular is going to be tu haïs. It's going to be the same form. This has the SST pattern of endings. And so the second person singular is going to be the same form, tu haïs, and they don't bother putting it there to save space. But then il haïs, it's I pronounced that wrong. It's je hais and tu hais and il hais. It's only the plural, which is on the next line where it has the 2 dots over the I, nous haïssons and il haïs, and then the vous form would have the same form as the first person with an EZ rather than the ONS. Nous haïssez. And so that's how we can use it, and that's why there's no second person, because it'll always have the same stem here. So we can see that for all the singular, it's the same stem, je hais, and for the plural, the stem is haïs. Nous haïssons, vous haïssez, and il haïs. So that's the indicative. Now for the imperfect, it only gives the je and the nous form. That would be the singular form, the singular form and the plural form, because that might change the stem, but for all the singular forms, the stem's going to be the same in the imperfect, and all the plural forms, the stems are going to be in the perfect. And the same thing with the past historic, j'ai and nuaim. It gives the singular form and the plural form of the first person, and the second and the third person will be just a change of the endings. So you need to know the endings for these tenses to be able to fully use these charts. Now, for the other ones, it only gives one form generally, and that's because the stem doesn't change. For the conditional, j'irai, it just gives the first person singular, and the stem aira, or ayer, will just have the different conditional endings on it. It won't change stems. Same thing for the subjunctive. And for the imperative, it gives the second person singular, je, I, or the imperative ie, and then it gives the first person plural, aison, let's hate, and the second person plural imperative would be the ez rather than the ons, I say. And then for the participles, it gives the present on the first line and the past on the second line. And if there's any question on what the masculine versus the feminine is, it'll give both the masculine and the feminine for the past participle. So you've got to know a good amount about how the verbs function, but you can basically get all the information from these charts. Now, the verbs that are the most complicated, être, avoir, faire, aller, they'll have the complete charts, and or sometimes they're partial because some of their conjugations will be regular. But for these just semi-irregular verbs, it's just showing how the stem changes because the endings can be pretty normal.